Hey everyone, super glad you could be here for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm thrilled, excited, honored, and lots of other words that we could be joined today with and by and also with Frank Hearn. Frank Hearn is a business strategist, a lawyer. He's worked with and helped startups, and I call them continue-ups. And he's been absolutely invaluable, incredibly invaluable to what we're doing with Win Again, whether it's helping negotiate contracts or just in general being an incredible consigliere. Uh, just a really fantastic right-hand person and a good friend. I've known him for um, a long time. And so, Frank, why don't you come on in and we'll get the party started here?
Hey, how are you?
Fabuloso. so, um, thanks for joining us today, Frank. I'm going to jump right in and really get started with some of the most important things that I believe business owners need to know. And oftentimes they either overlook or they don't necessarily really think is going to be a big issue. And it may come back to hit them. Right now we're in the midst of something where we're talking about a company that wants to take on the contents of my book, Win Again, and really absorb it into what they're trying to do, growing and creating a program for retired athletes. And it's a negotiation that we're going through now, Frank. And it's interesting because sometimes people don't necessarily place a lot of value on the IP that you've developed. So I guess my first question is, how do first of all, how do we protect our own intellectual property? And I know some people in the room today have written a book. What are some of the things that they can do to protect themselves?
Well, first, thank you very much for the kind words in terms of your introduction. But I think that's really an important question about the IP. Once you've already gone through the setting up the right type of company and so forth, uh, you want to make sure that you do protect your IP, whether it be in the form of a confidentiality agreement, but more importantly, if you do have a patent or at least an invention, you want to get and file a provisional application. Really, we have a system where it's not the first to invent, but rather the first to file. And so to really get that full patent protection, you're going to have to actually file. And what a provisional is simply just a brief description of what your invention is. You have then a year to actually fill out the patent application. But nevertheless, you want to do all of that. Short of that, you want to get back to, as I said, confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure agreements. Those agreements that just recognize that you have confidential proprietary information that you feel is very vital, very confidential to yourself, and you may share it with somebody else for a business reason, but you want to make sure that they keep it confidential as well.
But what happens? And you used the word earlier, invention, and I think people are saying, "Well, I didn't invent anything." But a lot of times, it's an invention of an idea or a concept. It's not necessarily inventing a new gadget or something. So, how do we know if we do actually have something that's worthy of that protection?
Well, you're right, and I didn't mean to be so glib about it by saying invention, but there's systems, there are methods. There's a method by which you might do something that could be patentable. So again, you would actually write it up that it's a unique way that you have decided or you have figured out to do a particular action. That is something that can be put in for a patent. And again, you write it up. And most importantly, I would suggest that you actually have a lawyer working with you, a particular patent lawyer, because it's a unique trait that they have that they can actually help steer you as to how the patent should be written, what should be done up. They could also do research to find out if there's anybody else out there that has filed a patent application in the same for doing the same kind of action or whatever the case may be. So again, I think it is more than just an invention. And I think the most important thing is you get someone knowledgeable to help you go through that system.
So, because everybody here has either involved in some sort of consulting work or advisory work or teaching, and I think that sometimes, it's interesting because I often say, I didn't invent the idea of preparing for an interview. I didn't invent, how to prepare for all that stuff. What I did, but as you said, I've got sort of a certain very specific kind of step-by-step process that I've come up with, but I don't think I necessarily invented, but it's something that I'd like to protect. somebody else who doesn't have any coaching experience to just come in and basically steal it from me. So you've mentioned patent and so forth, but is there a way to, how do I protect myself from someone's, let's say I've got, for example, right now, if you go to my website, you can download a document that's called 10 networking tips and then another 10 optimization or something. What can I do for those 10 tips that I think are very valuable for somebody from them just coming in, copying and pasting and putting it out on their own website?
It's a good question. You actually have the balance. And yes, it's not just patents. There are trade secrets that are out there that you're not going to file for any patent protection, but you have a trade secret there. And the whole concept of the word secret, you want to keep it that way. But that's got to be balanced against getting it out there, getting it marketed. And part of it going on YouTube or LinkedIn is saying, here are the 10 things. You're wetting their whistle. You're more or less saying, here's step number 2. You may not go through all the details of it, but you more or less hold back that you can actually have the real secret sauce will be disclosed when and if you actually have a confidentiality agreement with the individual that wants to follow up. So again, there really doesn't seem to be anything more. I mean, it's short of having kind of language on LinkedIn that this is proprietary to you. Again, you run into some problems of then enforcement and so forth, but nevertheless, you would still have some form of agreement. But again, you've got to do something to say, all right, I'm going to hold back a little bit on the secret sauce.
So when you have your own website and at the very bottom, like I do, I have all rights reserved 2022 by, Compass Points Advisors, my parent entity. What does that really mean anything? I mean,
Sure.
Okay.
No, it does, because you in order for it to be a secret, you have to treat it, or at least demonstrate to the world that you are keeping it a secret. But someone comes onto your site, they need to know, and they tacitly agree by joining or coming onto your website, that this is proprietary information of yours. So even if
Okay.
they do copy and cut and paste it and then start to use it, again, they are doing something in violation of that. Again, I go back to the word, the agreement
Mhm.
that they agreed to when they came onto your website. So again, you can get to the point where you, as the owner of the website, would have to then go after and pursue that particular person, but you do
Mhm.
need that protection on the website.
So even though I don't necessarily, so I'm using me as an example because I don't know other people's businesses as much, but on the bottom of mine does say that all rights are reserved. I also have something that says terms of use and privacy. So if you go onto my website, you don't necessarily see all these things unless you were to click on the link that says that outlines all this stuff. But you may see on the bottom it says all rights reserved, and again, you may just go on the website thinking blah blah blah, but the bottom line is that as long as you are on that site, it's the world realizes that by going on the site, they're basically agreeing to those terms.
Yes, I mean, that's
Okay.
right. I mean, everyone knows, because I might go on your website and go, wow, that's that's a great piece. I want to use that.
Mm,
Well, we know from even when we go back to school, there's plagiarism. It's not those are not my words. I'm taking your words. So again, it's understood. But again, by having the terms and conditions on your website, you have more or less said that this is what it is. And so there's an understanding that I know that on the website that this is your information.
good. So I encourage everyone out there, if you do not have something like that in the footer, please consider it. If you want, check out my website. Look at the bottom; it's there, and I encourage you to try to. I mean, I don't know. Am I allowed to tell them that they can copy and paste mine as long as they change the whatever it is? Well, talk to me about it, anyways. So good. I want to shift gears a little bit because a lot of times we are trying to grow our businesses. We're trying to figure out, well, who do we involve in our business? Who do we bring in as whether it's an advisor or a friend or former, work partner, whatever it might be. But in your opinion, who are some good people to have that should be part of that business circle of advisors? Who should be, do you believe, what are some of the sort of 3 or 4 types of people you should have in your circle?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I think a lot of people are, especially those who are entrepreneurs.
Mm,
They are confident, they know what they have great skill set, but really you've got to surround yourself with good people. As any athlete knows, they are a great athlete, but You surround them by the right kind of coach, and they will excel even more. And I think the same thing applies in business, where you really want to have the right type of people. And in my experience, who are those types of people? They are, I think you really want to have somebody who's going to be driving sales, marketing, because again, as a startup, as a company, it's all about bringing in the revenue. So you really need to have someone pushing and driving that. I think also it's important, and I think this gets weighted to the end, there should be some kind of lawyer involved. And when I say that, it's more or less a business lawyer. From my years of in-house, uh, they were termed a general counsel. Well, you liken it to almost like a field general. The general counsel is the good business lawyer, is the person that really knows the panoply of what really has to happen, and then can say, wait, that's a patent issue. We should get a patent specialist. That is a regulatory issue. We should get a regulatory expert. And that's where you actually go out and bring in the right expert to help you. But first and foremost, for the business owner, you need to have a good business lawyer by your side to help navigate and strategize. And I think the last one is also a finance person. Someone who's going to be able to keep your books in line. You're going to get investors. They're going to want to see, all right, what's your track record? What's the revenue stream? What's your cash flow? And you need someone to really be able to be on top of that. And so I liken it also to, pardon me with another analogy, but I did this once with one of the companies I had. The business owner is a great fisherman and throws the line out there. The other people are the ones that might tell them where to go, but also bring the fish into the actual boat, and make sure that your fishing expedition is successful. Same thing, surround yourself with the right people and make your venture a successful one.
Now, one thing that I've heard another, and actually a former athlete, who says that he's got his own huddle. He's got accountant and an advisor and an attorney. He's got a bunch of the A's. I think he had 5 or 6 A letters there. But yeah, those are all important. I think it's also a good idea to have somebody in your life that's a naysayer, a devil's advocate, someone who will say no almost all. I have somebody like that in my life. I've got a few people like that in my life, but they're, no, that's ridiculous. No, but then get them to explain why and walk you through it. So that this way you may not completely pull the plug on something, but at least you can tweak it based on their expertise. So, it's good to have, it's funny, a little over a year ago, I built sort of a board of advisors that I was hoping to fill that sort of that circle. But you also need to make sure that the people that are advising you want to remain sort of a critical part of your growth and not necessarily on the sidelines too much. So I think that's also important, is that they want to be involved, they want to be a part of and invest in your success and your future, and they help you out through thick and thin sort of thing.
Well, I think that's a great point. And you're right. You and I worked on putting together your board of advisors, because really what that board of advisors are people in the different, not your business, but really in different aspects of the industry that maybe can lend some support to help drive your growth. And so you want to just make sure, again, and a huddle is a great way to experience that. You have the right people to actually make a play happen. But to get back to one of the points you just mentioned about, well, you don't want all yes people that are working with you. It's again a fine line. You want to be able to get people to kind of row in line with you, be in the boat and let's all row together. But you also want to be able to have dissenting opinions. But you've got to make sure that you have the right people that can actually say, let me express the other point of view, but you know what? I'll get in line because that's what we're going to do. And so again, the way I come at it as a business lawyer, business strategist, is say, here are the different options, and maybe that's not the right way, but I understand where your vision is going, and maybe let's try another way. So it's more or less not just, and this is my training as a lawyer. You had a lot of people going, nope, you can't do it. Nope, you can't do it. But a good, effective lawyer is someone who recognizes, okay, what are the two parameters? What's definitely, you can't go any further than that. And then it's navigating through that gray area that says, okay, I know what you want. Come on, let's go this way, and navigate through what can be done and what's unwritten and so forth. And so again, I said, I go to a business lawyer, someone who will work with you to get you where you want to go.
Excellent. So, oh, by the way, just real quick, if anybody has a question for Frank or myself, on the right side, you'll see it says Q&A. Go ahead and go in there and go ahead and enter it. And what we'll do is when we're done with this part here, we'll jump into Q&A stuff. All right, so the next thing is a pretty important topic to me. You've known me for a long time. It's possible that on occasion I might get a little the term emotional or heated or upset with certain people. I have no patience in general, being from New York and so forth, but specifically for people that don't understand whether it's business models, et cetera. And I do tend to, possibly reply back in a form that I probably shouldn't. So what I need to do is I've got the 3 review rule on emails where I will write my anger out or whatever it is, then go back and delete 80% of it and then amend it again. I keep on deleting until finally I'm just got. But explain to me a little bit about why it's so important to remove emotion when you're running a business and facing business decisions.
Well, I think it is critical in order for your business to be successful. Emotion has its part, but when you really are driving, you actually have to make sure that you are taking a step back and looking at it objectively. And that's difficult at times. And that's where we get back to the question before, having the right people around to vet things. But emotion in and of itself is not a bad thing. Emotion, and one of the things when I was in corporate America, you had a lot of people that were just going in and moving paper around, and there wasn't what I saw the emotion. Um, I love the entrepreneurial world, the small company world, because it's emotion that's going to drive your passion. It's the passion that's going to drive your hard work, and that's all great stuff, and you want to have that. But the point is, as you just described in that email, there are going to be things that come in, or someone's going to come in and going to value your business differently than what you see it. This is your baby. You're growing up. You're bringing it up, and so you're going to have to more or less, like I said, I think you've had developed a great system where it's more or less, wait a minute, I want to get all my thoughts down, take a break, refine them, talk to people who are your close advisors and figure out. Sometimes an emotional response is good. A lot of times you actually have to step back and objectively say, wait a minute, what's going to be the reaction? And is the emotional response right? 9 times out of 10, it's like, no, I got to take those personal attacks out. But more or less, again, you have to step back. And again, an advisor helps you do that. But if you don't have an advisor, you're going to have that uh, um, uh, you're going to have to do it yourself, and that's difficult.
Yes, I agree. Um, that's probably why you're on speed dial pretty much for times like that. But look, there's it's interesting when you're an entrepreneur and you run a company for several years, you do feel like over the course of time you get more comfortable with what you should do to protect yourself and what needs to be done, and some of the things that may be overkill may not need to be done. But I agree, it's so important to have somebody that's again, a lawyer, but somebody who's seen a lot of that stuff on the other side, because a lot of times I might say, oh, I can't imagine John Smith or Nancy Doe would ever do that to me, and they have. So it's always a smart thing to be protected, and again, not just from a legal point of view, but also from really having business people that help support you, that understand the concept of, well, what is going to compel someone to want to become a customer to buy my product or service, and it's also essential to have that circle. So I'm going to that this was fantastic, Frank. Go any further, what's the best way for people to reach you?
No, I'm on LinkedIn, and got my Gmail is there tied to the LinkedIn account at fjhearn10 at gmail.com. And so would love to talk to anybody and help out whatever I can do to help. So, but yeah, that's great. And you can always reach me through Mark.
And I can vouch for you that you truly do mean what you say there, and you've been absolutely incredibly invaluable over the years. So I
Okay.
really appreciate your time today, and we're going to just jump to a quick comment and a question, and then we'll go back to the tables and so forth. But thank you so much for joining me today, Frank.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you.
Awesome. So Diane pointed out, I'm going to put on my glasses to read this though. So she pointed out, if someone copies and pastes your content on the internet, you can use software programs such as TinEye that will help find out who's using it. Then you can send a cease and desist letter. So I didn't know
Exactly
that.
right, and that's a great comment on by Diane. And that's the step. It's once you know that use is happening, and which is vital. If you do that, then the first step is a cease and desist. You've now then put the person using that material on notice that you better stop. And if they continue to do it, then you actually have developed the, if you will, the case to bring against that particular person.
That's interesting. Frank, this was awesome. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you very much.